I'm drawing Halloween character. Oh my god, now people can hear me. Okay, but did somebody guess in the chat? Because I'm not looking anymore. Because I forgot his name, but I know it's a character that is very Halloweeny. So. Did somebody find it in the chat? Okay, let's go see. Well, some people think it's Seth Rogen, but I don't think it's Seth Rogen. But yeah. Imp Boy, well, yeah, well, let's go with that. So, hi, now that the sound is on, we can stop playing that funny game, and I'm actually gonna do something productive. You see, there's no problems in life, there's just solutions. I want a shirt with that sentence now. Okay, yeah, so welcome to this cool stream where I'm going to talk about this new version of this gorgeous software called Harmony 21. Did anyone hear about it? I guess you did because you're right here. So the first thing I'm going to show you around is the brushes, because it's one of my favorite new things because I was heavily involved with it. So with the dev team, we decided that the brushes were great in the other version of the software, but we wanted to make them better this time around, right? Because, when something works, just make it even better. So if you go to the brush tool that is located right here, you have a bunch of new brushes that were added. So we kept the older one because, sometimes you get attached to a certain brush and we don't want to remove it because I would be very sad. But we have a new couple of brushes that are useful. We updated the fixed width one so that it's better. So if you want to do very, very clean up, like for anime or very precise drawing, you have this very thin line. But this is not impressive. There's a bunch of cool, impressive brushes, such as the tilt shading, which is my favorite. If you guys follow my streams on YouTube, I've been using that brush for months and months, right? But I decided to give it so that it's in the software now. Yay! So yeah, that's the brush I usually use. And the wonderful thing with it is that if I tilt my pencil, like if this is like the screen and my hand is like this holding my stylus, if my stylus is like this, a bit more angled, you get this very, very pale drawing. But if I put my stylus like this, it's going to be a bit more clean. So this allows me to rough very quickly, because if I want to rough a little ghost here, I can be like, oh, I'm going to draw something pale. Maybe it's going to be like this. Oh, this is more like an octopus. Maybe something like this. So I can be very, very rough to have like the constructing your drawing is important, kids. Like this. And then if I want to make the little cleaner lines, like it's not rough, it's not clean yet, it's just still my rough or my key poses, but on the same layer I can just quickly just draw it a bit more precise instead of having to make like another layer or change brush. I can just use the same brush and have access to all my things. And if I want to shade it, I can just really like put my pencil flat like I would with a graphite. I don't know. I don't know how to speak English. I can do my shading like this. And when I do my shading, I do love to make a very sharp shape like this, for example. And then I like to fill it in by putting my pencil to the side to have a very much wider option. And I think that looks very cool. Makes everything more shiny. I don't know. Let's give it a little mouth. Yay. So yeah, so that's the new tilt brush. Did anyone try this in the chat, that tilt brush yet? Or is this new information? Let us know in the chat so that I know if I should talk about something else instead. So that's the tilt brush. It's fun. We also have in the software there was a ballpoint brush, which was okay. I mean, it's just very simple, but it works. But we also added a dry ballpoint because, you know, when you work with a ballpoint pencil, it never works perfectly, right? So it's the fun when it's also very dried. So if I want to make the same ghost drawing, I can use a pencil that is very dried, so that it's not perfect. And this is amazing when you do storyboard, because then you can have something very sharp, but at the same time very rough. So the thing I wanted to say before I disappeared was that when you use a tilt-toon pencil or something that has lots of opacity, your rough tends to get very blurry, which is great if you're making something very rough, like your thumbnails, right? But if you want more definition, I always go for a brush that is either a pure vector, like this, so that I don't have any ambiguity, like, is this line or is it this line, right? So who knows? So when I work fast, I'd rather have less ambiguity. So I'm going to work with something more sharp. And the ballpoint is, the dry ballpoint is a bit sharper. So I really like to use that when I sketch. But all of these brushes, before I go to the next feature, I think it's really important for me to mention that when you animate, you see here, I don't have a lot of quality. If you want to get more quality because some drawings are more important or you're working very small in your camera, don't forget that you can go inside drawing. You can go to change vector drawing brush resolution. I mean, if you're working in vector, if you're working in bitmap, you know, you take the other one, right? Right? Pretty sure you know. You guys are very smart. And here my pixel density is 100%. So it means, because this window, lots of people does. So it means that, you know, that little square, well, it's not a square, it's a rectangle. It means that this is whatever resolution that was here. So it's, yeah, this one, 1920 by 1080. But if I make this 200%, it means that the pixel density would be twice as much inside that rectangle. And I can press OK. So now it can adjust the drawing you just made. It's never going to make them perfect, right? But at least it adjusts. And now if I go to draw on the same frame, I have a bit more definition. I'm still working very small, right? So it's not as great. But then if I do it one last time, and I really make this like 600%, and I draw again. Wait, my computer is running at the moment. It's a bit hard on your computer. Don't do that often. You see, now I have lots of definition and everything is crisp and clear. But, you know, don't do that, because then it means that your files are huge. The only times I do this is that when I use Harmony to drop like very, very nice drawing and I really want to get all the definitions, I do that. But it's more for illustration. If it's for an animation, try to keep it smaller size, okay? So... yeah, I'm drawing my ghost from real life reference. I have a ghost roommate. That's the ghost. That's the roommate that steals all my socks, and then they leave, and I'm sad. Okay, so in the chat, I was talking about a potential thing that I could talk about, and you guys chose animation. So I'm going to show you a couple of things that are good for animation and that some people ignore. So I'm going to draw another little ghost. It's going to be a happy ghost because I like happy things. And I'm going to give it a little hat because it's Halloween. It's disguised for Halloween. So that's my ghost. If I want to have that ghost flying around in the screen, I will give it some colors. Gorgeous. Amazing. So it's going to have some colors, and I'm going to give it a peg. And very quickly, I'm going to show you a cool feature. So if you get your transform tool and you want to move a peg around, if you want to have a little ghost floating around and having fun, sometimes it's a bit hard to just like try to keep it like flying because it's a bit hard. It's not that much that is hard. It's just time consuming, and life is a bit too short for me to do that. So what you can do is just make yourself like a bunch of motion keyframes like that. By the way, about motion keyframes, two things. You can go inside your, and I say this because I've talked to friends this morning who've been using the software for a while, and they didn't know that into the preferences, you can go to general, and in here you have stop motion or motion keyframes. So there's a check mark that you can check. If it's stop motion active, it means that you will not get tweening between your keyframes. If you disable it, it means that you will have animation in between your keyframes, right? So it just depends on what you want and what you don't want. So stop motion or motion, right? Motion means it's going to move. Stop motion means it's stopping the motion, so it's not going to move. So that's a preference, but we also have a little trigger that is hidden. I'm actually going to remove mine so that you see. So if you want to get a trigger button instead of going to your preferences all the time, because like I said, life is too short for that, you can go here, right click, go to customize in your timeline. You go here, right click, customize. You can go here and you have to go get the most wonderful button ever. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's called the stop motion keyframe mode. And you click on this, you bring it here. Where did it go? I think I clicked on the triangle. Yes, okay, so then you bring this here. And by the way, this panel is amazing because it allows you to remove all the things that you might not use. I know that usually here in the Harmony, we have a bunch of icons that allow you to do quicker cutout animation because you can like plan out your tweenings and stuff. But I don't use that because I don't do cutout that much lately. So I removed it so that I have more place for the things I really use as a hand-drawn animator in the past weeks. So yeah, so I always get my stop motion keyframe mode here, and you can just activate and deactivate the trigger. So if I activate it, then I put a keyframe on, boom, it's stop motion. If it's deactivate, then I put a keyframe on, it's motion. So that's great. So that being said, I have my little zone here. And if I want to have my little ghost flying around, what you can do is use a new button. Because yes, in Harmony 21, we have a couple of new buttons. If you go here inside the advanced animation toolbar, that little thing with the blue icons, you have an icon here that is called capture motion. It looks like a worm under the sun. If you click on this, you'll get the capture motion tool properties. Wait, I have too many windows open. What am I doing with my life? Here. So you click on this tool, and then in your tool properties, it's going to transform. Remember, it's the tool properties. If I go to brush, this is my brush. But if I go here, I have these options. So this is very great. I'm saying this because sometimes some people are looking for a view, and they're like, where is it? It's not a view. It's in the tool properties. And you're going to have the capture motion options. So, I mean, it's still new. I do have to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it's really fun. You can click on capture. And then there's this thing that appears. And if you move your character around. Oops, I forgot to. No, I made a mistake. So you just have to click on capture. And then when you draw with your stylus, you see there's a little countdown that happens. Of course, I don't have enough seconds. So it's probably going to stop here. But we're getting started there. And then if I press on play, yee! The ghost is just doing whatever it wants. I'm going to make it a bit longer so we have more fun times here. You can choose your keyframe interval. So if you're doing some things on 2s or on 3s, you can also change it. I'm going to put mine on 3s because it's funny. I'm going to go to capture again, and then I'm going to make it go, make a little movement like this. And that's going to be my movement for my ghost. And then you press play. I was a bit too slow this time. So that's why I say you're going to need to get a bit used to it because it's new for me as well. But yeah, I think, yeah, that's kind of cool. So if you do it seriously and you don't joke around, it can be very useful if you have, for example, an FX. So you can attach this to a particle system. You can also attach it if you have like falling leaf. You can make them fall. And you see how I'm drawing? This is going to be the timing that it's going to use. So it also records how I move. Oops, my ghost is a bit far away. I forgot to place the pivot point in the center. So yeah, that's really interesting to do some effects. So yeah, the last thing, that was the easy example. Now I'm just going to show you this, but with another element. I'm going to go get a little pre-made particle system. By the way, on my YouTube channel, I've been focusing on particles a lot in the summer. So if you have any questions about particles, you can just go and check it out. I have a bunch of tutorials about it. I think it's the twinkle particles that I want. I think. Yes, I want to save. Of course I want to save. No, that's not this one. Sorry. Particles. In the meantime, do you guys have questions? I'm just going to check the chat. Yes, Schneewark is right. Doing the capture motion I just showed is kind of similar to when you trace your curves and your functions in 3D. I used to do that back when I was a 3D animator. Where are the fairies? Oh, there you go. So I have a fairy. So you know the fairy particles are set on a peg, right? So if I move the fairy, if I move the peg, that's where the little glitter thing goes. Oh my god, that fairy was going on. So if I take that peg and I replace it with something else, I'm just going to remove all the animation that this peg has. And that's the fun thing with Harmony. They give you a bunch of particles and you can just try them and do whatever you want with it, which is great. So I'm going to remove the animation on that peg, or just remove the peg altogether. Reorganize my node view because it's a mess. There you go. I made a new peg here. The fairy is not moving. So I'm going to go to capture and I'm going to have that fairy move around. So I'll do something like this. And then oops. You see my particles are moving. So I love, people see capture motion and they're like, oh, it's never going to be useful in productions or whatever because it's too unpredictable. But trust me, for effects and comp team, I think it's going to come in very handy for some effects like this, or if you want to move something on a peg, or if you want to move like a bird in the sky or something. Like, I think it's really great, or just to see a movement really quick. It's going to be very cool to be able to do that. You can mix this with fairy particles. You can mix it with fire particles. And I mean, the sky is the limit in what you want to do with this. So also, if you keep in place, it's also going to stay in place. So pretty cool. So you just have to be sensible of like the time it takes for when you move. So it can get very useful. Yeah, so any questions about that, I'll answer later. But now we're going to jump to something else. So I'm going to go get I have a scene that I had open this morning. I'm just going to go get it because it's Halloween soon. So I have a little ghost here. And it's happy to see you all. So that ghost, if I go to render view, and if you want to try to render some things, in the past you could go to view, preview manager, and you would get all the little, I forgot how they're called, the resolution thingies. But now they're right here. So that's a small little thing. But you see in my camera view, if I go down here, right here, now you can get your resolution. And it's really great because if I'm here and I'm just testing out the colors, like I want to see how my colors look in render or my effects or whatever, I'll be able to work with it. So I'm going to go in my node view. Always organize your node view because it's important. You're going to thank yourself later. But if I want to unite these under the same composite, I'm just going to cut and paste them. Oh, I forgot one. There you go. And then just so you know, you can select a bunch of nodes at the same time. Whoop. Then you can press on Control H, and you're going to get a composite. It's very great to unite your stuff together. So what if I want to try some effects? So I'm going to get a gradient. And I'm going to put the gradient on top of my character. So I'm just going to cut it as well. There you go. Invert it. Okay, but what if I want to test how that gradient looks with like a blending node? You cannot see what the blending node will do unless you are in render. So I'm going to go here, get a blending node, and I'm going to put it to overlay because I want my ghost to shine or something. Ooh, that is so cool. Look at the difference just one little gradient and blending node can do. Ooh, so cool. So that's going to be what I want to test out. But if I want to test out the colors and how it looked, sometimes when you have a big scene and not a big computer, I'm doing great because I have a very, very powerful computer. But sometimes when you don't, you can lower the resolution and this will still allow you to see. Of course, 1/32 is a bit too intense. You don't see much. But if you're doing colors, I mean, that works. And that's kind of cool. Makes it all pixelated. So if you change it here and you go to render, you're going to be able to see this thing. And it's going to be all pixelated. And I think it looks very cool. But, I mean, you can change it to something else. And this will just... You see now I'm 1/4 of this size. So, of course, if I zoom, it's bad. But if I'm far away, you can just see your colors very quick. And this is going to help you out a lot. If you're doing animation and comp or something and you want to test your stuff and your computer is a bit struggling, you can just quickly change the resolution here. So that's a new thing that was in Harmony 21. We moved them here. It's just more convenient to use them. Something that I cannot show you, but you can just try it when you get it. Just moving around the software is so much smoother now. So even if I have a lot of effects like blur and stuff, this is because of some mathematic thingies that I don't understand a lot. But it's now faster than it was. And I've been testing it for a few weeks, and it's just glorious to work in the software because it's faster than ever. Because, you know, when you work with rigs and when you work with heavy compositing, it just gets heavier and heavier because technology gets better. So it's glad that the software is actually following along. Right, so we spoke about the brushes, but that's true, I disappeared, so I forgot to show you a few little thing with the brushes. So let me just go back to my other scene, get rid of that fairy. I completely forgot to do that. Silly me. So I know I'm jumping everywhere, but you see, here is my brushes that I was talking about. I'm going to go get back my tilt brush, tilt shading. Anyway, if you weren't there at the beginning, welcome to this stream. I'm showing a bunch of things with Harmony 21, and it's fun. And one of the things I'm showing is the new brushes that we have. So this is the tilt brush. I'm saying again, if my pencil is tilted on the side, it's going to be very, very pale. If I make it upward, it's going to be thin and sharp. But the reason why we're able to do this is because if you go to the vector brush properties or the bitmap, it works in both, we added a new couple of thingies. So if you go here in the little triangle, there is a pressure and there's speed and tilt button. So it means that not only do you take pressure to get your maximum and minimum size, for example, but you can also use tilt and speed, which is what I'm using here in this brush. If I go to the transparency, I mapped the opacity with the tilt. So depending on how I orient my pencil, it's going to get more or less opaque. So this is very pale, and then if I bring it up, it's going to be, oops, if I bring it up, it's going to be darker and sharper. Yeah, so that's my new favorite brush, and that's how it works. So if you want to replicate something similar, what I'm going to do now is just deconstruct this brush. Oh, hello, David. It's nice to see you here. Oh my God, so many new people in the chat. That's great. But yeah, so I shown you the brush at first, but I didn't show you how they were made. And I think that's what is important with that stream, because in promotional videos or in the documentations, sometimes we see we see the brush, but we don't really understand how they're made. So I'm going to take a little bit of minutes to show you around. So the tilt shading brush, how it works, how I made it, is that, like I said, by using the new features of pressure, tilt, and speed, of course, the maximum size, I did it with the pressure. But I also did it with the speed. So if I go very slow, it's a bit thicker. But if I go quick, it's going to get a bit thinner. It's a bit, it's not that strong. It's subtle, but it really makes a big difference when you're drawing. So you see, if I make a very quick stroke, it's going to get thinner. So if this is not your cup of tea, because everybody's different, and you want to change this, you can just remove the speed here, so that even if you go quick, it's not going to make your line smaller. So the reason I'm showing you this is that if you want to use our new brushes, but they're not up to your 100% satisfaction, you can still edit them. And that's what I love with that software. It's so easy to edit stuff out. Now, if I go to transparency, that's where I do a little magic. It's the opacity and flow are also mapped, not to pressure. So even if I press hard, it's not going to get darker. And even if I'm like this, if I press lightly, it's always going to be very dark. This is because I do not take pressure into consideration. It's really just the tilt. So that's the tilt shading brush. I hope it answered questions of people who would have liked to try it. One reason I really like it is because I don't only animate on Harmony. I do illustrations, and I do lots of figure drawing. You know, when you draw cool people or pictures from life. It's important to draw from life. Kids, all do it. It's important. But so when I draw from life, for example, I like sometimes to draw, you know, like these shapes. And I don't want to have to change brush to do my shading, so I can just put my pencil on the side and just do my little shading like that. Or if I'm drawing like someone or a cat or my dog or something. Let's go with my fish, for example. I'm going to draw something very like broad shapes. I have a fish on my desk, so it's always easy to reference it like this. And then if I want to shade it, it just becomes easier to work with the same brush. All right. Any questions about this before I move on? All right. So we talked about a little bit of comp. We talked about a little bit of hand-drawn. We did animation. Now I'm going to jump a little bit to the rigging, unless anybody has questions. No, I did forget something. That's the thing I wanted to talk about. So before we jump to rigging, I do need to show you something for FX Animator, because I think FX Animator needs more love. So if you're an FX Animator in the chat, raise your hand virtually. Because I won't see it if you raise your hand. The only person who's going to see you raise your hand is the ghost behind you. Look, it's behind you. Let's say that this, I'm drawing some effects. One thing that you can do, when I do effects, I almost always work into vector, but that's just me. I mean, everybody's different. But I do like to use vector when I work in effects. So I'm just going to draw. I'm going to take the new geometric effects brush, And one thing I want to show you is that if you have a special pen that takes rotation, so you see here, this is my pen. And most stylists will take tilt very well, but not all stylists take the rotation. But if you have a stylus that takes rotation, we support this with our systems. You can just go here, angle function, twist if supported by pen. It's not all stylus, it's just some of them. So if you do have that and you want to try it out, the geometric FX brush is very great, because if I'm standing here and I twist my pencil, you see it's twisting. And this is usually how I get some cool, interesting shapes. So it's a fun brush to draw with, to make some little lightning bolts or something. It's my lazy FX brush, because you can also have talent and just use a brush, actually draw decent lighting thingies. But I like the unpredictableness of that brush as well, so I do like to use it more than I should. So that's the twist FX brush. But if you're doing some effects, chances are that you're gonna use multiple colors. So I'm gonna go here, get a new color. So I'm gonna make something here, light blue. And if I'm drawing a shape like this, that's a cool shape. If you want to draw like the inside or the outside of the effects, usually what people would do is they would use another layer and maybe cut it so that I could use in my node view, for example. Get out. I could use another layer, give it a name if you're a good person. I'm not a good person right now. Make it go through a cutter, and that's not bad. It's a very proper way to do it. But sometimes we're in a bit of a hurry, so instead of using a cutter, like this, to draw the effects, what you could do. Oh man, these colors are hurting my eyeballs. That's better. If you're doing this, of course, you can take a cutter. And this is very great for some situations. For like shadows on a character or a mask, I always use 2 layers. I think it's better for the comp team. They're going to love you. But if you're doing just one drawing and you want this to be on the same layer, right? Because it's a bit easier. In the past, you could use the repaint brush. It was located inside the brush here. Into the tool properties, there was a repaint brush. It's not there anymore. Where did it go? This is because it's not there anymore. It's now its own tool. It's called a stencil brush. So I really wanted to take this stream to show it to you, because I hope nobody gets lost when they open the software and they're like, oh no, where is my repaint brush? It changed. It's now called a stencil brush. So for those of you who are familiar with Storyboard Pro, you already know that. But for those of you who aren't, you can just follow my video right now. So this is the stencil brush. The difference is that now if I go to my tool properties, I have a couple of things. And you can use the repaint brush or the overlay brush mode. So I'm just going to take the repaint brush to show you how it was before. So the repaint brush is what you had in the past. If I draw something, it's going to get cut. But the thing is that it repaints, meaning that it replaces the color, which in some cases, that's what you want. But in some other cases, you don't want it to break the under layer, right? Sometimes you just want it to be added on top. I'm going to show you why in a moment, but for now, I'm just going to draw it. So instead of taking the repaint brush, because also the repaint brush doesn't work with bitmap textures. So if I added a very cool, if I wanted to add something like this, like a texture, it wouldn't work with the repaint brush. It would break. It would just not be possible. It makes it vector, because it needs to break the vector, right? So then you use the overlay brush instead. I can use my texture and it works just fine. Why is that? It's because instead of replacing the color, it just overlays it on top. You know, when you use a software like Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint or something like that, you know, in your layers on the side, you always have the option to have your layers. And you know how you can take a layer and, you know, attach it to another one so that it now uses the one under as a stencil? Well, that's exactly what that brush is doing. So, whoop. But instead you are on the same layer. It just takes the art and it just uses the under thing as a stencil, but you still get this. So it's great for many things, such as using textures. But it's also great because if you're not satisfied, you can just click and delete it. Which you could not do with the repaint brush, because the repaint brush would... oops, that's not what I wanted. The repaint brush would really just replace your art. So if you delete it, you're stuck. Which is great in some cases, but not all the time. Another reason why the stencil brush will be better than the repaint brush for effects. Now I'm talking about effects, right? I'm not talking about shadows. If you put shadows on your character, you better do that with 2 layers. Otherwise, comp team is going to cry. You don't want to make your comp team cry. We have to love the comp team. They're amazing. They do amazing work. But what you can do if you're doing effects, because we, even in comp department, we understand that when you do effects, you sometimes have to deal with lots of different colors. So like for highlights and for shadows. So, oops, I'm going to get my texture again. Which one was it? It was hazy line. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to use my overlay brush and my hazy line. The thing that is great is that it stacks on top of each other. So that when I get to comp, if that's the effect I want to do, when I get to comp it, I'll be able, I will still be able to use what we call the color selector. So the color selector is not new. It's just the overlay brush that is new, right? So the color selector, I can now use it to break my shape. So I'm going to put it here. Now you don't see anything. But if I click on my color selector, it's basically like a color override, but for beginners. It's a very, very kind color override. So I go here, I press on plus, and then you can go to your drawing 1. You know, this is how I didn't name my drawing. It's just called drawing 1. If I click on here, I'm going to get this color. But if instead I wanted to get the highlights, I can just go here, get the highlights, and they're here. But because it was not the repaint brush, since instead of replacing the color, it just put it on top, it means that if I am the comp team, I can just get another comp color selector here. And instead of having the pink, now I'm going to have the blue. But you know, they're like, the blue is still all here. And you just add this one on top. So if I want this one to glow, I'm going to give it a glow. There you go. It looks weird because I'm in OpenGL view. You need to go in render view to see the full glowy thingy. And then if I want to make it glow, I do need to get a color card in the back, because otherwise I don't have anything to attach it to. Make it a nice blue color. There you go. And I'm going to get my glow. I'm going to make it shine like this. I will make it very, very evident. I love to use textures with glow because you see, you still have the very tasty texture showing up. I think it looks gorgeous. So yeah, and because it was not replaced, it means that I can just add it on top of what I had before, but without using like 500 layers to do your effects. You can just keep it on the same layer. And you know, with my color selector now, I can just use another one to go get the other blue that I had. I forgot what name it was, but you know, we'll find it. Where is it? Yeah, this one. And this one, I can give it another effect. So what if I want to give it a blending node and make it, I don't know, multiplied? Ooh, that's cool. or if I want to give it a blur node, I can do that. So I can do it per color without having to handle 500 layers, which is great. I like to have the least layer possible. Man, that is a great thing. I like it. So that would be my effects. Of course, you would need to draw more, but time is running. This time is running so fast. Let me see the chat if there's something. And while I read the chat, I'm gonna make the ghost animation play because I think it's funny. Halloween is coming. So yeah, while we have this, I'm just gonna make it play without the shake because I don't want anyone to get sick. There we go. So let's see the chat. I always get frustrated when I lose the underlay. Yes, chickpeas, you are absolutely right. I used to be scared and stressed when I would lose it. I mean, there's ways to work around it, but it was always annoying, especially in comp when we received the effects and they were repainted. I mean, it's not the animator's fault. It was just a sad situation. So I'm glad that this is over. I hope more people use the overlay when they do their effects because yeah, compositing team needs this. And it's useful for animators too, like I said, because you can remove it and not lose it. So it's great. It's amazing. Thank you, DJO. You're right. Schneewart is saying that is great. It's like doing these effects in my illustration work. Yes, do it like that in Harmony. Mary, I'm hoping we will have time on this present to hear about any new features on the rigs. True. I need to show you that. I will. No worries. It's just easy way to do effects now. And all right, so that's it. Now we're gonna do the rigging part. And I'm gonna go to my other scene. So let me go back to here. Okay, so in terms of rigging, we have a couple new things, such as the new they're not deformers, they're deformers. They're weighted deform. Thank you. So I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna use this fire. Why not? And I'm gonna go here in my in my how's it called? The nose view. Oh my god. I forgot how the nose view was called. Oh no, I'm gonna lose my job. Deform, yeah, I'm gonna get the weighted deformer to show you. And I'll get the new thing that is called the rigid deformer. Yeah, there we go. You know, it's new for me too, right? The names, it's not like I haven't been using these for 5 years, so I sometimes forget them. I mean, if I can forget what a node view is, I can forget what a rigid point deform is. So weighted deform came up with Harmony 20. And it's great because it allowed us to use a envelope deformer, for example, on a shape. Because you know that envelope deformers are amazing, but they don't go well with details. So if I use this on my flame, it's gonna probably look not really great. What is this? What is this? Yeah, it's awful and nobody's happy. So you see my texture here? It's not happy. Texture is not having fun. But you know how you could use the weighted deform to make it better. So you just needed to get a peg connected like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then it would make everything a bit better. Of course, if you don't push it too far, it would just make it look better. That's the weighted deform. But the weighted deform from Harmony 20, that's not the new one. I'm building it, okay? I'm getting there. We need context sometimes. The weighted deform could also be used to like put many deformers on top of each other. Or you could also use it with pegs, which is where I'm getting to, okay? So I'm gonna get a bunch of pegs and I'm gonna put them on my weighted deformer. There we go. And there, come on, there you go. So you could use this and put like many pegs, for example, and use it to, wait, I'm not doing this right. Screw the weighted deform. I have a memory blank. But with the rigid point deform, this one you can use a bunch of pegs like this. And the difference is that it's more reliable if you are using something that needs to be a bit more round in shapes. So you can then move your... What am I doing wrong? I'm doing something wrong. I'm sorry. I'll need to go check this and answer it in a couple of minutes. But wait, let me just show you this thing. I'm probably doing something weird. Okay, so hey, can you hear me? I think the screen is frozen for me. Chat, can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, oh, sorry, because I got rid of the weighted deform. I'm so silly. I wanted to get rid of the pegs, not the weighted deform. You know, these are the kind of things that happens when you're on stream and you do something silly. So let me just do it again. Yeah, before I wanted to delete like the pegs I put there, not the weighted deform. Oh, no. All right, so I'm just going to show you this again, and now it's going to work better. There you go. So that now if you have your different pegs, you can just change where their pivot point is. There you go. And then if you move these pegs, you can move your things like that. Yeah, so that's what's going on. Silly me. Sometimes you just need to take a break and redo things slowly, and it works. So the difference between the rigid point deform, not the difference, I mean the qualities of using this in your rig is that you can use it to move different pieces. So we don't recommend it for like arms and legs. Like it's not used for that. But if you have a character with hair, for example, or a cape or something that moves, you can use these points. And it's just a great way to move these points. It's really responsive. It's really great to be able to work with this. I'm going to go take a rig and just show it to you on an actual rig. I had it prepared. I think it's this one. Of course, I want to save this. It's beautiful. Come on. Mind you, I have 8 scenes open, so it's getting a bit heavier. All right, so I have this here. I just want to make sure it's the right colors. So see, that's all right. Yeah, so I have this character. It's an old rig I made for fun. If I wanted to have this, for example, on a character, so if I wanted to add it on this piece of clothing, for example, I would go into my rig. Of course, we don't recommend breaking a rig to add a new thing. I'm just showing it to you in this Twitch stream. And by the way, that's the last thing we're going to see together, and this is very sad. But, you know, there's going to be other streams. I'm just going to install this on the rig, and after that I'm going to check out what you guys have to say, because I cannot check this chat and rig at the same time. This is where my talent as a Harmony wizard has its limits. So I'm going to get my rigid point deformer. And by the way, I made this rig in Harmony 20, and it opens great in Harmony 21. So, I mean, that's a great thing to consider. There you go. So if I have this and I want to use it for my rig, you can. And you can use it. I used 2 pegs earlier, but you can use many more that if you want. Can you get rid of that little box? It's going to be easier. There you go. I'm going to use one last peg just to put it down here. Position your peg. When you position your pivot points, always do it with the advanced animation tools, not with the transform tool, because these are temporary. So if you have a series where the characters make like backflips and 360s and move around, and you need it to be a lot hand-drawn-ish, this is not something we recommend to put inside the rig to move the pieces. It is something we will recommend for texture, which is the next thing I'm going to show you before we leave. But here I'm showing you if this was a cutout series where the characters are a bit more not static, but like they're framed a certain way. So like the character will be a lot like this and talk a lot. There's a lot of series like this, and they're amazing. One of my favorite one is 16. I love that show. I love it so much. So that would be perfect, because then you can use these rigid points, these 3 pegs, and you can just move it like this. And it's really responsive, really great. Of course, you need to adjust it. I need to put it at the right spots now that I'm zoomed in. But, you know, it's really great to be able to move stuff around like this. It's great and it's responsive. So it's a bit different than having to use the deformer. So what I had in the past was the deformer, and it's not bad. Like using deformers is still amazing. It's just that if you want to have a different kind of animation, so instead of having to use the deformers to move your shape, which still works, but if you want something more automatic, that's where you're going to use this new, very easy to set up system. Of course, don't put it everywhere in your rig, because it will get heavy if you put too much, but that's true with most things concerning rigging. So always be careful and test your rig as you go, please, so that people don't have bad surprises when they animate. Oops, that's the one. So yeah, so that's a new thing. That's one of the new thing we added in rigging. And before we leave, I just want to show you that it can also be useful for textures. So if I have a paper texture, you can use that as well. So I'm going to show you right here. Get my little paper texture that I prepared, because I'm a prepared person. Right here. Oh no. Oh yes, okay, I have it here. Okay. It was just under the wrong name. So if I have a paper texture that I want to put on my character, but you want to move it, for example, I'm going to have this. It's going to be my texture. I'm going to add it like this. Or just the 3D model is poking through. Amazing. You can also use those on a texture. So I'm going to use the same setup as I had with the weighted form. Like this. I've got to give it a peg. I get my rigid. Of course, you can always pre-pack this in your library. I'm just making it from scratch because it's a stream. It's just easier. So like this. and like this. Okay, so I have a bunch of points. I'm just gonna put them somewhere like this. So you can use these to move textures that is on your character. Now I just need to cut it. Cutter. Do something like this. Invert it. There you go. So now I have texture on my character. So this is just great if you want to move your texture around, maybe like this. And you want it to follow. So imagine you had this, for example, on a shirt, on hair, on a cape, on whatever. It's great for both rigging and hand-drawn animation. So now if I want to be very fancy, I'm going to give it a little blending node. And we'll be done for today. So I'm still going to get some little questions in the chat. Don't worry. Oh, I forgot to put a transparent node. Genius. There you go. Let me get it more transparent. It has the blending. And that's it. So if I wanted to move the texture, if my character moves a little bit, it just makes it less static. You can just move your texture, which is great. So let's look at the chat. Wow, your voice was familiar, and I noticed I'm used to hearing you like a bird voice filter. It's not a filter. I speed up my videos when I put them on YouTube so that it goes faster when you guys watch it. Yo, 16, I love that show. Yes, Chickpeas 16 is a gorgeous, amazing show. Oh, we have a question. Oh, and Rennie wants to do more cutout in the future. I also want to do more cutout in the future. Now that I have this rig, which I will give on my YouTube channel around Christmas. So keep your eyes out. I might give it away. Who knows? If it's worth it, I need to look at it. What's the difference between this rigid deformer node and, let's say, a freeform deformer? Is it less prone to break the shape or the texture? I'm going to answer this very quick. But if you do want to check, I think we made a very broad comparison of them on YouTube. So I'm going to show you a link. Yeah, I'm going to share it right here. I think they show it a bit more, but I'm going to show you quickly the difference between the two. We're using that little paper texture. There you go. Okay, so if I have my shapes, the rigid points, what they're going to do, I'm going to do it very quick here. I'm just 5 minutes over. It's fine. I can take 5 more, and after that I'll be done. So I use my 4 pegs. I put them in the corner just like I would do with my freeform. And honestly, Ben Jet 7. I think the best way for you to see it is to try it. And you're gonna see it here. So this is with my pegs. Oops, I'm going to get out of the render view. So they're a bit more sharp than, say, I'm going to pull it very, very extreme here. So they're a bit more sharp than the freeform. The freeform deformer is a bit more round in its shape than the rigid. You see, because it's called rigid. So it's a bit more rigid. But if instead I had a freeform deformer, here, deformer, freeform, and you moved it, you see, you get a bit more curve, which is good. Like if that's what you want, it's smooth, it's good. It just depends on what you want, right? So the freeform deformer will be a bit more free-ish in its shape. I love that node, it's so great. While the rigid will be a bit more rigid than its counterpart, which is great for some things and stuff. How long did it take you to learn to use the node view? I've never used it for the past month. I've been learning Toon Boom. For the node view, it caught on very quick, but I do have to say you have to understand the logic of it first. But once you understand the logic, it's easy. So I'm just going to show you guys quickly, because I do think it's important, and people should stop being scared of the node view, because the node view is your best friend. So the node view is scary until you understand it. So I'm just going to show you this very quickly. And if you have any questions, I do recommend watching this. This is for Tangerine Chant. I can take one last question after, but after that I have to run. What was I going to say? Yes, so the character here. The node tree is scary until you understand what it does, okay? So green nodes are movement nodes. So they're just going to make things move, like this torso, right? The movement is just on the green box. If I turn off the green box, there's no movement. Okay, so green means movement. The light blue elements here, they're your tangible things. So like your artwork, your gradients, your things that are in this world, like you can touch them. It's there. And then you have the dark blue node that are just effect nodes, okay? So if I do this, but in a simpler manner, without my rig, I'm going to make it as simple as I can for all of you guys, and that's the last thing I'm going to do for today. I'm going to show you Baby Node View 101, okay? And that's something I really encourage you all to try. You take a tool, you make a box. Like this is your node view, okay? So it's the same as a timeline. It's just with a time. It's just it doesn't show you the time, and it's not a line, but it's like the timeline, okay? You have your layers right here. This is the same layer. If I add a new layer, I'm going to call it new. I have this thing. Now it looks scary, but just take it and move it. Ooh, now you have two layers, which is the same thing. If you put this on the right instead, it goes under, right? So things that are on the left are on top of things that are on the right, the same way that things are on the top and bottom of your timeline, right? So now if this is my rectangle right here, this is another rectangle. If I remove it, I don't see it. Okay, so that's it. If you want your rectangle to move, you give it a peg, Control P, give it a peg, and then you can just move it around. So the movement is just on the peg. If you unconnect the peg, you have no movement, and then you're sad. Okay? And so that's the green box. The green box is just movement. And then if you want this thing to shine, just going to give it a different color, right? If you want this to have an effect, I'm going to give it a highlight. No, a glow, I mean. Glow. There you go. Yeah, if I want it to glow, I'm just going to put a box on it. I give it a color card, otherwise I don't see things. Perfect. Okay. If I want this to glow, all you have to do is press on Enter. And then you're going to see a couple of things. Though if you're new, I do recommend going to the node library because you can see pictures and it's prettier. I'm going to write what I want. So a glow. Knowing what you want is the hard part, but you can just go in the documentations or watch my tutorials, and then you're going to know. So I get a glow. To connect it, you press on Alt and you slide it. So then my shapes glow. Movement, shape, effect. You cannot connect a peg to an effect because it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it's just going to go through and be sad. Because they need a medium. So the movement needs to be attached to a drawing node and the effect needs to be attached to a drawing node. Right? Green goes in green, blue goes in blue. And it always flows from top to bottom, just like water falling down the drain. And then if you want to change the effect, you press on the yellow box, you go here and you change it. Ooh. And now last thing I want to show you is that if you want to have your glow behind your object, you don't need to copy and paste it. What you have to do is get another wire, connect it down, and there you go. You have your drawing that is going to be shown twice, one on your glow and one here. Or 3 times if you want. or you can put it in front or behind. So there's a lot of things you can do. And the last thing is that instead of a glow, I can also add a highlight, which is what you probably want. Then if I make a new drawing layer, which is Control R, I'm going to go here, connect it here, and then whatever I draw on this node, this drawing node, or this layer in my timeline, like the high layer, whatever I draw, whoa, will be turned into a highlight. How amazing and easy is this? It's pretty cool and pretty easy, I think. So it's been 15 minutes over because we had technical difficulties, but I think I really have to go. So I hope you had fun. And the last thing I want to share, if you guys want to try it, is oops, this little thing. Yeah, there you go. So I have this little video that shows you how to go around the node view. And starting from this one, you can use a lot of different ones, including my spirit video. So if you guys want to try to make a little ghost, I hope that you're going to have fun and try this video that I'm going to share right now, right here. Ghost video. So I hope you had fun, and I'll see you again in the next stream. It's going to be fun and educational and great. So I hope you had fun. And with that, bye-bye.